Morning of September 3rd, 1939. The sun rises weakly over Poland, filtered through clouds of smoke rising from distant villages, carrying the acrid smell of burned wood and fresh gunpowder. The air is heavy, damp with morning dew, but already echoing with the distant sounds of tank engines and the thunder of artillery, making the ground tremble as if the earth itself is alive and in agony. On muddy roads, Polish soldiers, exhausted after 2 days of intense fighting, feel the ache in their bones, the weight of their backpacks, and the cold metal of their weapons against sweaty skin. Civilians, waking in simple homes, hear the hum of planes in the sky and wonder if today will be the day the war reaches them personally. The German invasion advances relentlessly, and horror spreads like a growing shadow. In Truskolassy, a small rural village, the morning silence is brutally shattered. 55 Polish peasants, including men who barely had time to dress for work, women with headscarves, and even a child of just 2 years, clutched in her mother's arms, are surrounded by Wehrmacht soldiers. The air fills with shouted orders in German, the metallic click of rifles being cocked. There is no trial, only execution. Bursts of gunfire echo across the fields, mixed with screams of terror and muffled pleas. Bodies fall into the soft earth, blood mixing with mud, releasing a metallic and nauseating smell that lingers in the air for hours. Entire families are erased in moments, leaving behind only the crackling of flames devouring wooden cabins, reducing homes to piles of hot ashes. Survivors, hidden in barns or nearby forests, feel their hearts racing, cold sweat running down their backs as terror paralyzes them. Not far away, in WWII, the market square, once a place of lively exchanges and conversations, turns into a scene of pure despair. 20 Jews are dragged to the center, their clothes torn, faces marked by fear and fatigue. Among them is Israel Louis, a 64-year-old man whose calloused hands from work tremble slightly as he faces the soldiers. His daughter, Liebe Louis, cannot contain the urge to protect him. She runs through the crowd, her chest heaving, feet stumbling on the uneven stones of the square. A German officer, with an impeccable uniform and an empty gaze, orders her to open her mouth for her supposed lack of respect. The shot echoes like an isolated thunderclap, and Liebe falls, her body convulsing briefly before going still, blood spreading across the dusty ground. The other 19 are shot immediately after, the rhythmic shots like a final sentence, leaving an oppressive silence broken only by the distant cries of hidden witnesses. The smell of cordite and death permeates the air, a visceral reminder that war spares no innocence. Meanwhile, the horror multiplies in other parts of Poland. In Bydgoszcz, known as Bromberg to the Germans, what would become known as Bloody Sunday begins to unfold. Local Germans, supported by invading forces, claim sabotage by Poles and launch brutal reprisals. Hundreds of Polish civilians are rounded up in squares and streets. Many of them teachers, intellectuals, and ordinary citizens, forced to march under the relentless sun. The air vibrates with shouts of accusation and the sound of rifle butts striking bodies. Mass executions occur, with shootings in improvised ditches where the smell of fresh earth mixed with fresh blood makes the air unbreathable. Women and children are not spared, their cries echoing before the final shots. In places like Bąków, Henryków, and Leszno in Mazovia, 144 civilians, including entire families, are massacred by German troops. Bodies left exposed as warnings, the buzz of flies becoming the only sound after the chaos. In Piekary Śląski and Stribnica in Silesia, German police and Freikorps execute 12 Poles, panic spreading like wildfire in dry straw, with survivors feeling the bitter taste of fear in their dry mouths. In the defenseless town of Sulejow, hell descends from the skies in the afternoon of that day. German Luftwaffe bombers roar over the rooftops, the deafening sound of their engines making windows rattle and hearts pound. In minutes, the town center, home to 6,500 Polish and Jewish residents, plus 3,000 refugees fleeing the enemy advance, is engulfed in voracious flames. The smell of sulfur and burning wood fills the air as successive explosions hurl debris and dust everywhere. Thousands run in panic to the nearby woods, feet trampling wet grass, hot air burning their lungs. But the planes return in low flights, their machine guns spitting fire, the whir of bullets cutting the air like enraged bees. Young Ben Helfgott, running with his family, feels the heat of the flames on his back, sees people around him falling with clothes on fire, screaming in pain as they roll on the ground. That night, the sky over Sulejow glows red like blood, reflecting the ruined town, the crackling of embers mixed with the moans of the wounded. While Poland bleeds, the world reacts. On the morning of September 3rd, Britain and France declare war on Germany, honoring their guarantees to Poland. In London, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain announces on the radio, his grave voice echoing in British homes, where families feel a chill of apprehension, the smell of morning tea suddenly sour with the news. In Paris, the same happens, but on the Polish front line, these distant words seem like an empty echo, unable to halt the German advance. In the Atlantic, the conflict expands to the seas. At 9 o'clock that night, the German submarine U-30, commanded by Julius Lemp, spots the British liner Athenia, mistaking it for an armed ship. A torpedo is launched, tearing the hull of the vessel traveling from Liverpool to Montreal with 1,103 passengers on board, many of them civilians fleeing war-torn Europe. The explosion echoes in the cold waters, the ship tilting as icy water floods the decks. Screams of panic fill the salty air, mothers clutching children, the smell of oil and smoke mixing with terror. 112 lives are lost, including 28 Americans, bodies floating in the dark waves under the moonlight. In the United States, President Franklin Roosevelt, in a message to the people, emphasizes neutrality. No man or woman should think that American troops will be sent to European battlefields. But for the grieving families, the salty taste of tears is the only immediate comfort. Confident in a quick victory, Adolf Hitler leaves Berlin on his special train, the America, on the night of September 3rd. Surrounded by aides, he follows reports from the front, the rocking of the train mixing with the clink of glasses in premature celebrations. Meanwhile, Britain launches its first offensive action. In an unusual way. 10 Whitley planes cross the North Sea, carrying not bombs, but 13 tons of propaganda leaflets. Over the Ruhr, 6 million sheets of paper fall like an improbable snowfall, delivering a message to the Germans. Your leaders have condemned you to the massacres, miseries, and deprivations of a war you cannot win. The wind carries the words, but in Poland, where the ground still smokes and bodies lie unburied, these messages seem too distant. The third day of the war reveals the true face of the conflict, not just battles between armies, but an assault on humanity. Soldiers on the front line feel the weight of uncertainty. Civilians, the terror of imminent loss. What will tomorrow bring? More flames, more blood, or a glimpse of hope? To not miss the next day, subscribe, like, and comment.